Welcome to Beyond the Walls podcast. I'm your host, Kylie, and I want to share through personal experience and life lessons learned about personal walls that I have overcome and overcoming still, and to give you hope and tools to go beyond your walls too. Let's get started. Well, today I am so excited to have this conversation with my dear friend, Carol Austin. We met back in Philadelphia, and we both participated in a leadership training course that it brought me so much healing. I know if you guys have been listening to this podcast for a while, you've heard me mention it and talk about it. And it just took me to another level that just set me on the path to be able to choose to believe that I could do anything and to be unstoppable in the world. And today I have brought on Carol to help teach you guys a great tool to help just for you guys to be able to process and take on a little piece of that I got. And so Carol, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about you, what you're up to today, and what the audience should know about you.
Great. Thank you so much, Kylie. It's so great to be here. And so great, especially to be with you, in this context. So, and I'm here as, for really in my day work, I lead an organization that works in the early childhood space, in the education space. And education has always been, and working in education has always been a mainstay in my life, right? Through my own journey. And having said that, though, I will say that I didn't start to do the personal development part of education into my adult life, into my 30s. I had never just really explored that part of me. And I will say that I went to a women leaders program in my church. And I remember that there was a therapist there who said, we need to tend to every part of us, not just the spiritual, but our mental, our emotional, our social, or financial, all of our health holistically.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And I left that session thinking, wow, yes, it is all of me. All of those are all of me.
Yeah.
So I left and started to look at what would it look like if I could tend to myself and my own growth and development holistically. So that I think led me on the same journey of really looking at a lot of stuff in terms of who am I? What are the things that where am I stuck? And I saw lots of places where I was stuck.
Yes.
I'm looking to but I could start to be honest with myself about it. Okay. I wasn't. But on this journey of being able to live my fullest life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt when I left Philadelphia. Is feeling like God can be a part of every part of my life.
Yeah.
I had just compartmentalized all of those different aspects. And then in addition to compartmentalizing them, I minimized the value of the other parts, right? The education, the physical, your health, mental, emotional. And it just was so crippling in my world. And so when I left Philadelphia, we were only there for like 2.5 years. I remember during that time when I left Philadelphia as a new woman. And I left as somebody, I didn't know what I was going to do in the future. I just knew anything was possible, which was kind of just as scary as saying nothing's possible. Because you're like, I don't know what that's going to look like. But I was committed to being somebody who could do hard things. That's all I knew. I was just willing to stop being somebody who said, if it's hard, I'm not going to do it. And it just slowly, one thing after the next in my life, I just took it on. And now I'm doing this today, right? You could not have told me when I was living in Philadelphia that this is the life that I would be living.
I hear you. I have a similar experience. I'm still in the Philadelphia area. Okay, but I have a similar experience of looking at life from, wow, okay, what's next? My friends, I have a friend who joked. She's like, Carol sold her house and bought a new house because her office space didn't work. She said, who does that? I'm like, I do.
Yeah.
I woke up one morning and said, why am I tolerating this? Now
Yeah.
that we're working mostly from home, I need to have something that works. This doesn't
True.
work. I'm going to do
Yes.
something about it. It was that simple.
Yeah. Do you love your office now?
I do.
Oh,
I
that's
do. I
awesome.
love being able to look out the window and see the light shining in and the sun, and to be able to have, yes, I love the kitchen is right behind me. I love everything about it,
Yeah, that's
right?
so
It
awesome.
has life work on a
Yes.
whole other level.
Yeah. Why are we tolerating? Why do we just tolerate the bare minimum? It doesn't, I mean, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense,
Yeah,
right?
we suffer through life
We really do.
needlessly.
So, one of the things that I really wanted to bring you on for specifically is because something really magical happened to me during one of these coaching sessions that I had.
Mhm.
And it really transformed my way of being. But there's those situations where you're like, man, how did that even happen? I don't know how to tell that to somebody else. And so I would love in our conversation today for you to kind of help my audience if they could have this tool. Like, I know it
Yeah,
would make such a difference for them.
yeah.
And so I can tell you kind of what my experience was, if you want to start.
Please,
Um,
yes.
so I took this class, and it's the biggest thing I had ever done at that point in my life. Okay. And I had to take on this big project. And we had to meet regularly with a coach. And so every time we had these conversations, what we had to do first was just kind of say what our intention was going to be, for like, who was I going to be in that conversation? Because as you guys know, anytime you're taking on a hard task or doing something challenging, it starts out right. There's New Year's resolutions. We're so excited. This is a great idea. And then we hit one roadblock, and all of a sudden we're out. This is too overwhelming. It's too hard. Never mind. I can't do it. Right. And so it kind of just helped me to just continue to be reminded, like, what am I doing and why am I doing this? And so,
Mm.
as you guys know, I just told you when I left Philadelphia, I became someone who was willing to do hard things. But at that time, I was someone who was willing to do hard things, but I was sort of being dragged through my life in it, right? Like there was still a little bit of resistance. It was kind of like just drudgery. It was painful and not enjoyable. And so I kind of got some coaching through that and was like, why? Like, do you want to do hard things or not? Like, why do we have to be miserable about it? And so I took on joyful perseverance.
Mm.
And I can't tell you what a difference just having that phrase, just it
Yeah.
changed the conversation for me, right? Instead of being, I'm doing something really hard and difficult, became something so much more powerful and like, this is a good thing. I want to do it. I'm willing and I'm able,
Mm.
right? Like it brought confidence and surrender as opposed to resistance and death. So, how can I bring that to others? Like, how did that happen? What's the value in it? Tell me all the things.
Yeah, no, it's really great, Kylie. Wow. There's so many places we can go with how did that happen, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the key things, let's try and create a bit of a condition for some of that, because part of how that happened is you realize you didn't have to be stuck
Yeah.
in being how you were being about it.
Yeah.
And mostly in life, we think that how we are is real. And that's just, I'm just mad and I'm an angry person, or I'm a this person. And other people reinforce that and tell us that we're that way too.
Mm.
Right. So part of it is for us first being able to loosen the grip on that notion, and let go, open ourselves up to it. That's not necessarily so, right? You're
Mm.
not necessarily the angry person, or the timid person, or the
Yeah.
shy person, or then we have all these personality tests that reinforce it for us.
Yes.
All right. That tells I am just this way. So I'm inviting us. Part of what there is to invite that we're created human beings, and we can be who we create as well, as a function of, creative with our words. Okay, and I know that may sound hokey. Like, how do you do that? Like, what do you mean that we are who we create as well? Well, let me give you a couple of points to look at. I was thinking the other day how, I'm well into my 50s at this point. Okay. And here's my hair is kind of gray. There's a view that I had of people who were in their 50s when I was 20, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, they're so old, and there's this, and I watch myself now looking back too.
Yeah.
And talking about, if I don't catch it, the Gen Zers, or those young people, or these kids. Notice how you do that, right? Yeah. And the older folks used to do the same back in your generation. Yes. Right? So I say that to say that, life and where we are in life and our lens helps to create our view of how life really is. Yeah. Where you sit as a parent, before you were a parent, you had a certain view of parenting and kids, and why doesn't my mom do, we look back, same with our parents, we can get more realistic with that, right? Yeah. Like our parents.
Yep. I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then there we are.
Exactly. Because now you're in a different space. You have a different lens. You have a different view. So once again, we're saying this to open you up to, you're not fixed. Your view of life has everything to do with how you end up responding to life. Yeah. Okay. So I think it's really key to be able to understand that we can end up being in different circumstances that give us that view, or we can create it. We can have ourselves, like, sometimes get in the shoes of another to create that view, look through their eyes. Okay. Another lens. Think about, you and your siblings grew up in the same household. I look at my siblings. We literally have a different experience and view and story about our growing up. Yeah. All three of us. Yeah. I look at my younger sister sometimes and I think, oh, really? That doesn't sound like the same household.
Yes.
that I grew up in.
I had a conversation with my mom not too long ago, and when she tells her story of what our childhood was like we have completely different memories. She's like, what house did you grow up in?
Yeah.
Right? And we're like, what house did you grow up in?
Right.
Yeah. It's wild.
Right. Same household. Most people can relate to that, because you look at your sibling, you're like, what are you talking about? That makes no sense. Yeah. Okay, so I say all this to say that, we do have this opportunity to create. We do have this opportunity to shift our view, to consider that perhaps there's another way of looking at things. Perhaps how I'm seeing it isn't how it has to be. And perhaps this is a function of my own view. Yeah. Right. So that is one of the things that's really key, because as human beings, we are pretty much attached to how we see things is how it is. Yeah. That nails our feet to the ground. Yeah. And we walk through life that way. Yeah. Right? Yeah. We do. And we think, oh, everybody else is wrong. And how we view it is
clearly.
We're not bad people, right? But that just is kind of how we are, and maybe whatever that is, a survival mechanism or whatever it is. Yeah. But we walk through life that way. Yeah. Right? So the real possibility and the opportunity is to be able to create a view and a way of being in life that actually empowers you. Yeah. Yeah. If you're not what, if you're like, you got something that empowers you, nothing else to create. Yeah. Right. But if you're in a place where you're like, wow, and maybe an area of life where you lack power or freedom or full self-expression, you want to create something. Yeah. You want to deal with who you're being. Yeah. Not the circumstances. Circumstances are what circumstances are.
Yes. Well, that's my favorite part about it, that I think because we focus so much on feeling negative about our circumstances, and then feel we just lose all of our power,
Yeah.
and feel like if we don't have to, unless we change our circumstances, we're never going to be happy. And then we're chasing that trap of, well, I'll be happy when.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, how about you be who you are? What if you could be creating what you want right now within your
Yeah.
circumstances?
Yeah.
And that was mind blowing for me, that I was like, oh man, because my all my attention was always on, well, I'm not happy because my husband's doing this and my kids are doing that, and all of that's out of our control. I can't change those people, right? And then it just creates such a conditional negative interaction that's, it just sucks the life out of you.
It's beautiful, right? It's so beautiful, Kylie, because we get sucked into, well, maybe when I retire,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if I move here, maybe I go on this vacation. Look, the vacation lasts as long as the vacation lasts.
Yep.
And then the next day when you're back home, it's gone. The
Yeah.
memory's gone.
Yes.
So I think who you're pointing to, it's not the circumstances, but we're caught in this trap where we keep trying to change it and think that there's some circumstance that's going to make a difference,
Yes.
right? But once again, we look at folk who may be in poor circumstance and we see them laughing. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, how does that happen?
Yeah.
I went to the Grand Canyon many years ago. Sidebar, and we'll get into the kind of creating because it's an experience that stayed with me. I remember being in the Grand Canyon National Park and meeting somebody in the park, and I said, "Oh, great! Do you live here?" They said, "Yeah, everybody who works in the canyon lives in the canyon." I don't know if that was
Oh.
true, but they were working in this store, and turns out that they were hiking through the canyon 15 years previous and end up staying.
Oh wow.
And I remember saying to them, "Wow, well, what do you do here? I did. There's TV play. You don't have access to really TV, and we hike the canyon.
Mm.
You hike the canyon, mind-boggling for me, right? That view of life and the simplicity of life
Mm.
that they chose. It just came to mind for me as you were speaking
Yeah.
because I was just reminded of, choice.
Yeah.
Just said, you know what, I'm gonna just have this simple life, and that's kind of how that is,
Yeah. And love
right?
it. Like if they
And
you don't choose
and
that.
love it.
Yeah.
He isn't burdened by that at all.
Yeah.
So the beginning part of this, as you can see, is getting kind of loosening up that we're fixed
Yeah.
and that we're any one way.
Yeah.
Um, beginning to understand that we have choice
Yeah.
and that we have, same people in the family, different experiences. We can begin to get into each other's worlds, and this is about creating a world that inspires us.
Yeah.
So that's the first. And then, so, once you're there, like you're like, oh, I can create. And once again, we're not talking about faking it
Hmm.
either.
Yeah.
Like, let me just fake something or make something random up.
Yeah.
We're talking about, you want to create a way of being that actually you're inspired by,
Yeah.
inspired enough by to have the integrity to follow through on what you create.
Yeah.
So when you say you're being joyfully persistent,
Mm-hmm.
right, there's actions that go along with that.
Yeah.
Like when you're being joyfully persistent in the moment, there is the follow through on being joyfully persistent
Yeah.
in life,
Yeah.
right? So that's not faking it. That's not just sending, faking it till you make it. That is actually like creating it, saying this is who I'm going to be, and then being that way, and
Yeah.
then they're showing up that way
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah.
Okay, but that lives from what's a way of being that actually inspires you. And that may take something. It
Hmm.
may take something to figure out if I could be any way in this situation, how would I want to be? That's the
Yeah.
question to ask. What's if I could be any way? So I was interviewing for the role that I have now several years ago. And I remember before I walked into my interview, a whole panel of about, I can't remember how many people were in the room, 10 people, I think,
Okay.
in the room at the time. I sat down, I said, okay, great. So who am I going to be in this? Who am I committed to being in this interview? If there could be any way, how would I be? And I knew that there were a bunch of people in there. I said authentic, free, and powerful. I can't remember the exact words of what I created, but it was that experience.
Yeah.
And I remember, being in the interview and just really questions coming out. I did the usual preparation, questions coming at me. And I actually paused and listened to the question and looked for the answer, like what was there for me, so that I could really answer authentically, not just give words from a sheet that I had.
Yeah.
And to be real, when questions that I didn't know, one of the things that I owned, I said, data is not a strength of mine. If I were in this role, I would really need somebody who's really great with like the data, because that is not my thing. And I was free to say that. And it was, I remember walking out in the interview and saying to myself, wow, if I don't get that job, it doesn't even matter, because there was such a freedom that I have from being me.
Yeah.
From being true to what it is that I created, from they got who I am. I wasn't some representative walking in trying to persuade them that I know how to do what I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
Trying to get one over on them somewhere. And then when I get there, having to like keep covering it up.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking when you were sharing that. It was like, especially because earlier you're talking about like having a particular way of being is not fake it till you make it. But had you not intentionally chosen who you wanted to be in that interview, you would have been the fake it till you make it, right? Because
Totally.
you're trying to put on this fake representation. And then, yeah, now if you got the job, it's because you lied to them. You deceived them somehow. You overpromised something that was not you in the first place. And so, but that's just how we're naturally going to show up. We'll be fake, right? It's almost just that. It's such a twist. It seems so unnatural to us, I think, right? When we just go in through life unintentionally, we are actually being fake then, right? Like,
yes.
And so instead of, we're so afraid to just see who we actually are. And then we're so afraid to just believe we could be different.
Yeah. Oh, how beautiful is that, Kylie? Wow, we're so afraid to believe we could be different.
Yeah.
We're so afraid to own that we actually do have that much power.
Yeah.
That we're not the victims to life. And even though we don't want to use that word because that sounds weak.
Yeah.
But we're not at the effect. Life isn't all those terrible people doing X, Y, and Z, and we don't have anything to say about it. We have everything to say about who we are going to be in the face of it. Everything to say.
Everything. Yeah.
About who we're going to be in the face of any circumstance. And this is about that. So it's so great that you brought that up, right? Because that ability to create in a moment, and sometimes we see families who go through hard things, like you're like, what? And you're forgiving? That's a creation. Yeah. That is a choice.
Yes.
And you hear it, and that's power.
Yeah.
And that's available for all of us. It really, 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 really is.
Yeah. And I love that it's not in our circumstances. Because even like your way of being, like with your interview example,
yeah,
it's no longer outcome dependent either.
Right. That's so great. I walked out of there and I didn't know if I had a job or not, but it didn't matter because I was a free human being walking around, and I would get the next one. There was a world of possibility, hope, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in a space of like something's going to show up because it's just that great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if not this, that. And so what it makes available is more possibility, more hope, more joy, more it just does. It just works that way. Life just works that way.
Yeah. And I love that then in that space, because I think, when you were sharing about the Grand Canyon story, I immediately felt like, oh, I think in the past, I always felt like it just needed to be these like humongous changes then, right?
Mm,
So the idea of creating my future just felt so overwhelming because it felt like I had to be a completely different person and my circumstances had to be completely different. Like
right.
such a large leap.
Yeah.
And I think the first step in that intentionalness is really just dealing with my own internal thoughts,
Yeah.
right? I don't have to deal with the whole world. I don't have to move my house yet, right? Like almost like the
Not
first
at
step is just
all.
to realize like, oh, I'm not enjoying my office. My office is bringing me stress. What am I going to do about it? And then you can just take those baby steps, right? It starts with the thoughts and then creating a possibility. Like, what are all the things we could consider doing?
Mm,
What
great.
is possible? I just did an episode about change and it was kind of like that's what it was, right? Like how do we just the opportunity cost in front of us? What is it of if nothing changes in our circumstances or if our circumstances are changing? Because sometimes the external things do change against our will or without knowing that they're coming, but we still get to have a say about how we're going to experience it.
Yeah.
What is the meaning we want to give it? Because like with the sibling example too, right? We can look at the same scenario and be like, this was the worst childhood or the best childhood. And they had the same opportunity. And it is just the lens. What's the lens we want to look at? And I feel like for me, I think it was just so easy. My natural automatic lens, right? It's almost like an awareness of realizing what's my automatic natural lens, how I view life.
Yeah.
And if I don't intentionally choose a different lens, like that's just as how I'm going to interpret the world around me. It doesn't matter what the actual world is that's coming at me, but it's how am I relating with the world? How do I want to take it on? And then once you realize it, you're like, why would we choose to go around with drudgery and fear and condemnation then, right? Like,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, Kylie. But everything that you say, echo, echo, echo. It
yeah,
starts with that awareness of like where we are, right? And the courage sometimes to tell the truth to
yeah,
ourselves. Like my view of life is kind of like negative is Debbie Downer,
yeah,
is whatever that truth is to
yeah,
yourself so that you can like notice it, not so that you can make yourself wrong and be all guilty and say what a terrible
yes,
person I am. That's not the
yeah.
point.
It's over.
That goes nowhere.
Totally.
But so that you can own that, hey, that doesn't serve me.
Yeah,
That is not serving me.
yeah,
I want to do something that actually serves me, that
yeah,
actually empowers me, that
yeah,
actually inspires me, and that doesn't. So
yeah,
I want to like let go of that.
yeah. Totally.
Let go of that and create
Yeah.
what would inspire me in this moment. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have to like buy a new house like I did. You can change it up. You can do all kinds of things,
Yeah.
right? You decide you're going to go into the office instead. There's a whole world available
Yeah.
from whatever it is that you end up creating, and
Yeah.
we really do have that.
Yeah. And I think it's inspiring when we can share each other's stories. When we hear, I think that's what's so important too about community
Mm,
and having coaching. Like someone that can help you look beyond yourself because we get so limited. And how do we have conversations with each other to help inspire each other? Not to be competitive, right? Because I'm thinking, it just made me think right now, because I'm literally sitting in my bedroom recording right now, okay? I don't even have an office. And the thought that just went through my mind was like, okay, someday I'm going to be so excited. I never even wanted an office before in my life. I never had a reason to have an office, okay? But now I've taken on a role where I'm going to need an office someday.
mm,
I'm not there right now,
mm.
but I'm going to joyfully keep doing what I'm doing right now in my bedroom until someday I'm in the position like I have the desire to have an office someday. right?
Yeah.
Because just as easily I could start competing and comparing and, oh, woe is me, or I'm not good enough, or I should already be someplace, and making ourselves wrong. Like what you're saying, like how can we start then condemning our position and what we are doing? The circumstances. We just want to put our eyes on the circumstances. And instead, a more productive path for me is to just make the most of this opportunity. Like, I'm so grateful. I have a really pretty bedroom that my sister helped me decorate. Like, I didn't do this. Like, awesome. This is at least like, this is next level. This is the nicest bedroom I've ever had in my married life, right? And so now I'm
Mm.
in this position. Like, I have a really pretty bedroom that I can record in and sit and do this with you. Who knows what's next? Let's see what happens.
Oh my goodness. The more you speak, Kylie, the more aware I am and more present I am to how much we focus obsessively on
Mm,
circumstances,
yeah,
having more money, having more of this. And we know from looking at everybody who has it all, we
yeah,
know that's not the answer,
yeah,
but we don't let go of it because of whatever society tells us,
yeah,
we should have. And part of the key once again to this is being willing to like tell the truth to ourselves, and being willing to realize that, you know what, we need to like actually give that up. You got
yeah,
to give something up in order to create what it is that world of possibility,
yeah,
that world of like hope or inspiration that you want.
yeah.
But it's giving up the stuff that isn't serving you.
Yes, yeah,
Those notions of, okay, if only I get rich, if I'm rich enough, or I have the big enough house, or I have the good looking man or woman, wherever you are, all of those things that society has been telling us that we should
mm,
have. Oh,
yeah,
you're a certain age, you're what,
yeah,
what, you should be there by this, you should have X amount of money in the bank, and this in the
yes,
retirement account, and be looking this way, and have this man and the 2.5 kids, your kids should be X, all of that.
yeah. Says who?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
we say. So, Carol, how can somebody know, or what advice would you give them to, because my experience of it is like it just clicked. Like there's just something internal. It just felt good in the moment. Like when I chose joyful perseverance, it just made sense.
Mhm.
So, how, I know you've shared a little bit of like how you can get there and being intentional and stepping into creating something new.
Yeah,
How would you help somebody to get there? I guess, like, to where do you even begin? Is there a
right.
place to start?
Yeah. So, the first step is in realizing and acknowledging that you can get there. This is yours to create. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, really, I would say that's step one. And
Yeah.
hopefully, everything that we have talked about today has started to open that up for anybody, and realizing that, hey, there's a view that we
Yeah.
have, and we can create that. So, that's step one. Step two, I would look at if there's an area of life where you feel like, whoa, you're just not inspired, empowered, and look to see if there's an area of life that isn't working as well as you would like it to work, right? You could even spend some time noting for yourself, what is it that's not working about that?
Yeah.
What are the things, just so that it's not in your head, because there's a finite set of things.
Yeah.
What are the things that aren't working? Okay. And how are you being about those things that aren't working? When they're
Mm,
not working, are you upset? Are you annoyed? Are you angry? Are you afraid?
yeah.
Are you feeling hopeless? Right? Being able to tell the truth to yourself about how and who you're being in those moments when that's not working
Yes.
for you. Like whether it's you're around a job, or whether it's related to, you know, your office
Yes.
space, right? How I was being about my office space wasn't working for me is like, Eeyore.
Yeah.
Oh, I just have to, this is just how it is.
Yeah.
I was totally at the effect of it. Uh, this is annoying. This is frustrating, but I need to just suffer through it until one day I woke up, I realized, whoa, that's who I've been being about it.
Yeah.
If I could be any way in this situation, which is the third thing. Okay. So first you realize that you have the ability to change it. Second, you look at what's the maybe take an area of life that you want to see something new in.
Yeah.
Third, you jot down, well, what's going on in that area that's not working for me, and who am I being in those moments is
Yeah.
the third. And then fourth, you start to ask yourself the question, if I could be any way in
Mm.
this area of life that would empower me, who would I be? And for me, the answer to that was, I could be being powerful, being sourceful, being the source of my life in this area. I'll
Yeah.
say being somebody who can do something about it,
Yeah.
right? Be
Yeah.
powerful. And I realized in that moment that I didn't have to suffer through it.
Yeah.
I had something to say and I could do something about that space. And I chose what I chose as a solution.
Yeah.
There could have been
Yeah.
many other solutions,
Yeah.
but I made such a difference, not just suffering through it. But I didn't even realize I was suffering through it
Yes.
until I did.
Yeah. We almost have to just get sick and tired till we realize because we're
Yeah, we get
autopilot. So, yeah.
used to suffering or struggle or whatever. We get used to things that don't work.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
don't even realize that we're suffering and struggling with it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why that's a good set. You're number one, being really open to like, hey, you don't have to,
Yeah.
right? You can be any number of ways you can create. Second, being willing to like look at, well, what's that area of life where I am experiencing that this is not great for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then third, jotting down what is it that's not working so that it's not just in your head, because it is a finite set of things. It's not like we like to say, oh, nothing is working. That's not true.
Yeah. Yes. Always and nevers.
Okay. So get it finite so that the specific area is a good place to start. Get it finite and who you're being in those moments when it's not working. Because
Yeah.
I was being helpless and hopeless and long suffering.
Yeah.
And then okay, and then you ask yourself that question, if I could be any way in this area of life, any way that would inspire me,
Yeah.
who would I be? Right? Or you could ask yourself the flip question, who don't I get to be in those moments
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
would love to be? And I know who I don't get to be is somebody who is in that moment was powerful, was somebody who was the boss of my life. So, and that inspired me. So that's kind of an example of one way you could
Yeah.
get to that place of really creating. And
Yeah.
I think that's actually a better question. Who don't I get to be in this area
Yeah.
that I would love to be in those moments?
Yeah.
But because once again, Kylie, this is about not necessarily about this is not about changing circumstances, but it's about shifting who you get to be in the face of the circumstance.
Yeah.
And you will find that when you shift that, it will reach back and
Yeah.
shift everything.
Yes.
When you
Yes.
shift who you're being, it will reach back and give you such a view on life and such power to
Yeah.
shift whatever is going on. It'll make a difference
Yeah.
because you'll be operating from as a different human being.
Yeah. And we get to operate in flexibility, right? I think that's what's so important about creation, especially what comes next. Like it hasn't actually happened yet, right? It's so much of life we project to like this is how it's always been. All of that rigidity of how we viewed and we've decided we're stuck, our circumstances are stuck, we are limited. And so I love that being the first step to just can we just believe
Yeah.
that it can be different,
Yeah.
and then we can be open to it being different in any possible way. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, because I think, yeah, with your office situation, right? Like you could have chosen lots of circumstances. You got to consider the opportunity cost of all of it. Like, okay, well, then here's my biggest dream, right? Like here's what I just can't even imagine doing. This would be crazy and radical. Is that possible? What would it take? Then we can baby step it backwards of like, what would it look like if I just was this? And it doesn't matter the circumstances. Like it doesn't matter. I think of when I first started having this conversation, I just remember the feeling and the change, right? Especially when you're going to go into like a coaching call where you want to be teachable. Like I want to be flexible and teachable and be willing to believe that I can be different and do anything.
Yeah.
And being able to be in that place where you're intentionally choosing how you're going to show up, like it just, I didn't know what was going to come in the conversation. And I didn't have to focus on fearing all the ways I was going to fail. I didn't have to even focus on how all the ways I felt like I failed the week prior, right? Like
Yeah.
everything just kind of disappeared of what already was up to this point, and I didn't have to worry about what was coming next. Right now, this is who I am committed to being under all circumstances. Whatever
Yeah.
comes my way, this is how I want to approach it. And it leaves us open to, I think, too, to not fearing the other people in our lives and the other circumstances that are truly out of our control. Like it
Mm.
just allows us to just show up and take that information in and actually deal with it real time, right? Instead of coming in defensive and protective and, all of this shutdown stuckness, like it just made such a difference to be able to just, I wanted to be teachable. I wanted to be somebody who could do hard things. And that was just the mindset that I took in. And then it was no longer about the circumstances.
Yeah. It's amazing what you can do, what's possible when you're truly free. And
Yeah.
that's what I hear in your speaking, Kylie. Um, when you're free, wow. I mean, and many of us we're physically free in that we're not in prison,
Yeah.
or in some way, but we're not free in our spirits or our minds.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to get free, but I hear, you go from strength to strength, from freedom to creating,
Yeah.
because there is real freedom there.
Yeah.
And that comes from, in part, and not put words in your mouth, I'll share from my own space, that comes from the courage to look and own when you've not been, and to be
Yeah.
willing to tell the truth about what's not working, everything else that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
And be willing to be honest and open and say, hey, you know what, that didn't work, or I've this how I've been being isn't. And
Yeah.
so it comes with the courage to do all that.
Yeah.
um I see it show up in my own work environment. I was just sharing with somebody the other day how yesterday, as a matter of fact, how I see that. Wow, a lot of people in my field, they come to this because they feel it's a calling, right? When you work in the nonprofit sector, and I haven't been tending to, like, I will call the workplace spirituality, in that sense, of my staff, that need that they have in this environment for those connections, and for a different kind of space that is different to a corporate space. When
Yeah.
you go to those corporations and it's the rules and the this and the that and the
Yeah.
people in our field, it's a different kind of space inside of organization there is to create, because that's why people are there. They're not there for the big figure salaries and the cut your net corporate kind of environment,
Yeah.
right? So that also needs to be tended to, and I haven't been doing that. And I was like, wow, after revelation, I haven't been doing that, and that doesn't work for my people. You're
Yeah.
telling me it doesn't work,
Yeah.
but do I have the courage to, and the openness, the teachability to
Yeah.
be open to that?
Yeah.
right? I haven't been up until yesterday, and then I was like, but now I am. I see, because I see it in newly in a different way and context, and it's great. So now I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah. And then the courage to not just spend all your time shaming yourself and making yourself wrong. Like, I can't believe I haven't been,
Yeah,
right? Like, and
yeah,
especially I think when you've experienced it and you're like, okay, yeah, I know how to do this. But we all then just naturally, we slowly go back
totally,
into autopilot, and then we have to be reminded, and then we get to try again, right?
totally. I spend no time shaming myself and
No.
beating up on myself. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things through, this work that we've done together that I really got for myself. What a waste of my energy and time.
Totally.
That's part of being human. I'm human.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
imperfect. I'm gonna
Yeah.
get it wrong. I'm gonna, regress. I mean, that's part of it. And I embrace that.
Yeah.
So I can like say, hey, you know what? I was wrong. I
Yes.
tell my staff that all the time, like, you need to check me. I
Yeah.
will I will say it in this way, you need to check me. I come up with all these glorious ideas, but some of them are ridiculous. Okay?
Yeah.
Do not go ahead and do these things if you think you need to push back. I need people who are going to push back.
Yeah.
I can't have yes people. You need to push back because my ideas, it may sound great in my head,
Yeah.
but let's talk about it.
Totally. Yeah. And that's the benefit too, when so if we just know all of those things are true, right? Like it's gonna happen, we're gonna forget. Like I think that's what's always so surprising and refreshing sometimes when we're like, we can never hear good news enough. There's no
Mhm.
limit in the need to keep being reminded of what is true and excellent and lovely and necessary to be reminded of. So it makes me think, so what a really neat story. So the coach that I had during this project that I was doing, it was like 3 years ago, I think.
Mhm.
We didn't, it was a Zoom course because everything was shut down. I'm pretty sure it might have been pre-COVID time, but it was on Zoom anyway. So I hadn't met this person in real life. We only had, Zoom conversations. And she didn't even live in Texas. Okay. So I started meeting my sister who moved about an hour away. We started meeting halfway at a Panera to do work together. And would you believe this? My coach just happened to be in that Panera. And I looked
You're
over
kidding.
and I did a double take and I was like, I was like, what are you doing here? And so we just looked at each other and I couldn't honestly, so ridiculous. I didn't even remember her name in the moment, right? Like, but we were so endeared to one another
Mm.
and I was so excited to see her. And so I was telling her this new crazy project that I'm doing. We had just decided to start a podcast together and I'm going to start this business. And it was just so exciting. And only in that moment did I even remember that intention that I had chosen.
Yeah.
And I needed it so much in that moment to be reminded. Like, I knew I was doing something hard and big, but it didn't feel hard and big,
Yeah.
right? Like, so much had kind of changed in my mindset and my excitement of believing in the possibility of this project that I'm taking on. But I'm like, it just inspired me so much to be like, oh my gosh, like I remember now what my intentions were every coaching session with you of
Yeah.
having joyful perseverance. And I'm like, this is me. I am still to this day joyful perseverance. And so it's that much louder in my world now that I'm like, okay, I still can. Like I know I'm persevering right now. Let me do it joyfully. I can do it. And so just the need to be reminded again, to be re-inspired, like that need never goes away.
It never goes away. Ever.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you're saying this. I was saying the same to somebody in a call last night. I said, I kind of forgot that I said that I was going to transform our organization to be a different kind of organization. I guess this is part that I forgot about that.
Yes.
Right? This workplace spirituality is kind of like, okay, this is part of it. So it never goes away. You're right. And we're human and we're going to forget and we're going to mess up. And, if we can just accept that rather than expect there's a place of perfection to
Yeah.
get to,
Yeah.
because it's never happening.
Never. Yeah.
Um, life would be so much more free and different.
Yeah. Yeah.
To
I
be
do
free to
believe
fail, to mess
it
up.
gets, I do believe it gets easier though. I don't know if
Yeah.
you feel right. Like it's almost like the more
Oh,
that you
totally. You
practice
don't even notice that it's hard, right?
it.
It may be time for a whole other level, because your level, what is hard is
Yeah.
you have a lot more room to
Yeah.
like take on big things. It's a whole other level that you get
Yeah.
to. So
Yeah.
yeah, it totally like my ease to be authentically myself, to walk around and not get my nails done. Or here I am sitting not even wearing makeup really, except I did color my eyebrows in. The
Yes, I had to
eyebrows,
do the same.
you do.
Yeah.
The eyebrows are the only thing. I gotta have the eyebrows because it's too naked without the eyebrows.
Yes.
But the freedom to show up around other, chief executives and EDs. I was in a meeting the other day, and here I am as myself. And somebody commented on that
Yeah.
you just are so you.
Yeah. Secure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's that's real living.
Yeah. Yeah. And being honest. How do we just be honest with ourselves? I think the courage, I love that your reminder that we've got to just be courageous enough to
Mhm.
just see what's really true for ourselves.
Yeah,
The good,
yeah,
the bad, the ugly, and then it doesn't have to mean good
yeah.
or bad. Like
Right.
it just is, and then we get to choose. So
Yeah.
what? What now?
Yeah, so good, Kylie, because I think one of the other things is to be able to, in some way, be in some, whether it's a buddy or partner or community where you can actually even share. Because
Yeah,
Kylie, when you start to tell the truth to yourself and to other people, you realize that they have the same thing.
totally.
So it becomes even easier to start to tell the truth to yourself.
Yeah,
If you're in a dialogue or community or something,
yeah,
right? Because it's just the voices in our head that tells us we're so bad, and you can't tell people that, you can't say X, Y, well, nine-tenths of the people are thinking the
yeah,
same thing, but you don't realize because you think it's just you.
yeah, yeah. We want to feel isolated. We're the only ones. They don't understand.
Yeah,
But I think it's important too, then, if this is the kind of mindset you want to take on, I'm so lucky that my husband has also taken on the same mindset,
right.
right? And so I'm
Makes a
not
difference.
saying change your people around you and get rid of the people that don't want to be this way, but go find people that do want to be this way,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. I have calls with my friends who have done take every week
Yeah,
because it matters. Absolutely.
yeah,
Because you're not going to be like anything. We're not designed as human beings to live in isolation and alone. I'm sorry. There
yeah,
may be people that think that's the case, but that's
yeah.
not how human beings thrive.
No, it avoids some conflict for a little while, but
Yes.
there's a whole lot of denial of internal conflict. But it's almost in that you're the question you propose, right? What are you missing out on? By doing that, you might be protecting yourself from something, but what are you missing out on? What are you not
Yeah.
getting to participate in? What
Yeah.
are you losing
Right.
by
Well,
choosing that way?
yeah. No, look, Myers-Briggs would tell you I am an ISTJ. I'm an
Okay.
introvert,
Hmm.
right? And I do love time by myself and reading a book and that late night. I've never been a party animal girl. Lots of people are not really into that. Don't like
Yeah.
big things. I do them a lot because the nature of what my job is and what I'm committed to providing in the world requires that I'm kind of out there, right?
Yeah.
I don't get a ton of energy per se with regard to that. But the truth of the matter is we live in the world.
Yeah.
I live in the world. So to be in the world and I've got to have that that ability. I don't ever live in isolation unless I really am on some island really by myself, like in Castaway, the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
So even though I value that alone time, I still need to interact and live as a citizen and a human being
Yeah.
impacted by everything that else is going on. So
We need the community.
yeah,
We need each other.
yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do. Even when we don't like each other sometimes, or we think it's a bother,
Yeah. Makes it harder.
we get something from it, because if I wasn't in community, I wouldn't have gotten that I'm not that different from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, Carol, thank you so much for your time. I think this has been it's been a re-inspiring conversation for me, just to remember my own intention, right? Of my own possibility of being someone who can joyfully persevere. And for those of you listening, please, I would love to hear what has opened up for you. Come get coaching, come talk it through, ask me questions, go to the website, send me a note of what is even possible for you. What do you believe could even be different? What do you want to be different about your life and how you experience it? And can you be courageous enough to just try? Thank you, Carol, for sharing your heart, for re-inspiring. Such a great time.
Great being with you. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you would like more information about opportunities for coaching or more help outside of the podcast, you can follow us at beyondthewalls.podcast on Instagram, or check out our website, beyondthewallspodcast.com. Until next time, bye.